what's more fulfilling than seeing a kid learn to play and develop a skill, and then a team come together? And so I can expand, but really seeing the teams that I get to lead develop and grow is the greatest measure of success in my life.
Welcome to the Hope in Real Life podcast with Jason Gore. Our team is passionate and committed to bringing you more hope in the everyday, real areas of your life. If this conversation and content is valuable for you, please do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and even share. You never know how valuable it could be to share a little bit of hope with someone else. Let's get the conversation started. Well, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. I could not be more excited to be here this week with, truthfully, not only someone who's been incredibly successful in life, but also a good friend, Mr. Chris Truong. And so welcome to the show. Welcome to the episode. We are going to be talking this week about how to be successful in the marketplace. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that are asking that question, that are caught up in the grind and trying to climb that ladder and just balance the things of life. And I'm telling you, you are a man that a lot of people need to hear from. So Chris, welcome to the show. Glad that you're here with us.
Thanks, Jason. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Why don't we do this? Let's do this. Just give them a little background, just personal. We'll jump into the business side of things in a minute, but just, married, kids, let us know the whole deal. Who are we talking to here?
I'm blessed to be a father of 4 kids, ages 8, 12, 14, and 17. 2 boys, 2 girls, and every night at dinner, we have a blast sharing about the day, and all that centered around my wife, Linda, who is, we've been married 20 years, just celebrated our anniversary recently, and, I'm lucky to be a father and husband to that clan.
Yeah, I would agree with that last statement. You are lucky to be with that clan.
Punching way above my weight on all that.
You're right. Hey, look, let's do it. So I'm just going to read 4 things here. So to give the listeners an idea of who you are, then I want you to talk about it a little bit. But former VP of Motricity, former COO of Bandwidth, former CEO of Republic Wireless, and now CEO of Relay. Why don't you just give us your brief story and what success has looked like for you in the marketplace over the last, handful of years plus?
Sure, happy to do that. So I went to undergrad at Stanford, joined a consulting firm called McKinsey right after that in the Silicon Valley, consulting to wireless companies in particular. Leveraged that to go into investing, venture capital, at a place called Technology Crossover Ventures, where we invested millions of dollars in wireless and software companies. And one of those companies was a company called Motricity out here in Durham. So from Palo Alto, found a company in Durham. We invested $27 million into them. And then they recruited me to join a few months later. And Motricity was a pretty awesome experience. We raised about $500 million. Bought a bunch of companies, and I always say, I dealed my way out of a job from that company because
I love how you just said we bought a bunch of companies. We bought a bunch of companies. I buy coffee.
There you go. Yeah. A little bit harder than that, but the last deal, we bought a company in Seattle. Decided, hard decision to relocate headquarters out there, and so my wife and I faced a first key fork in the career and life road where we had to decide where we go to Seattle with the company or go to New Jersey area where my wife is from. That was sort of on the life plan, or plant deeper roots here in Raleigh. And when we came out here, we thought it'd be a 2 or 3 year stint, but we came to really love this area. We came to really love our church, Hope. That was a key influence in that decision, and we decided, let's try to find something here. Then I was fortunate enough, God brought 2 guys into my life named Henry Kastner and David Morkin. They were the founders of Bandwidth. And quite honestly, they didn't have a job I could apply for. We just had a lunch, hit it off, and they invited me to come into the company to help with just a bunch of different things.
They didn't have a job opening for a guy that just bought companies?
No, they didn't have that job rec out there. So So I think I came in with a strategy kind of title. Just random bunch of stuff. And but one of those work streams was to help think about new growth areas for the business as growth had kind of flattened out a little bit. And so we came up with a bunch of different ideas. Some didn't work, but 2 that did. One was what Bandwidth became today. So Bandwidth is a communications platform as a service company. What that means is they help companies like an Uber or any app that's trying to communicate, right? Send texts and make calls from the app. That platform enables those kind of services. So we grew that business into a public company. At one point, it was worth $5 billion, so had a lot of great success. The other company that we birthed out of Bandwidth was we had this crazy idea that we could, this is back in 2011, use Wi-Fi, offload a lot of minutes and megabytes onto the Wi-Fi towers in your living room instead of the big cell towers.
That'll never work. Never work. It's not gonna...
A lot of people told us that would not work, that we were crazy, but you got to takes a little bit of crazy to start something new.
Yep.
And so we gave it a shot. We thought we would just launch this little experiment. We hacked some Android phones. And it was crazy because we went viral about the story about the company on TechCrunch, and then I'm dating myself, but on Yahoo News, which is a really big thing once upon a time. The servers melted down. We couldn't open up our site, but when we eventually got them open, it was like midnight, and we sold all 5,000 phones that we had bought for the year in 3 hours.
Yeah.
And we were like, hey, we've caught some lightning in a bottle here. And we actually pivoted a bunch of our best people to go out and focus on that business.
Yeah, man. I mean, I wrote down here from talking with our team, Republic Wireless ended up selling 5,000 phones in 3 hours. There's a wait list and there was also a wait list of hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, hundreds of thousands of people wanted to buy our $20 unlimited plan. And back then, unlimited plans were like $120. Yeah. So we were crazy cheap. We honestly didn't know if we could make it work or not, but we got out there, and over the next 5 years, we built the business from zero that night, November 19th, 2011, to 5 years later, $100 million of revenue. We were Consumer Reports' top prepaid carrier for a couple of years in a row, and serving hundreds of thousands of consumers, saving them millions of dollars in their personal budgets all across the country.
Yeah, I mean, that's adding value to people's lives too. And you're saving them money, different way, completely disrupting the market. That's exciting. And then from Republic, now you're a CEO of a company called Relay.
Yeah.
And talk to us just about that, just for a moment, and what that transition was like and what Relay is all about.
Yeah, so we grew Republic to 100, but then it became tough to grow because Sprint and T-Mobile got into a big old price war. If you know, Sprint had to join up with T-Mobile. They couldn't survive that, and it became hard for smaller companies like us to continue to grow and survive. So we focused the business on profitability. We use those cash flows to then invest in research and development of a new product that we call Relay. And Relay was really centered on an idea that not every interface should be that rectangular piece of glass that we all look at called the smartphone. Yeah. That a screen-free interface would be better for certain kinds of people and use cases. The best examples that aren't Relay are Amazon Echo, Google Home, Siri, right? Where you're talking to the cloud, not just looking at a screen. Right. And so we thought about really two segments that could benefit from this. The first was young kids, right? This is 2018, 19. Screen addiction was a big thing in the world, and we all had young kids who were kind of getting to that age, and we didn't want to give them an iPhone, right? We didn't want to give them another thing to be.
I mean, I can speak to this one directly. We were product owners of Relay because when my kids are now, they're 15, they do have phones now, and of course I heard for years, we're the only people on the planet that are our age that don't have smartphones. Yeah. Good, that's on purpose. But we had Relays for that reason. If they're going to spend the night at a friend's house, or if they're at school, if they want to communicate with us, they can push a button, leave a message, we're going to flash it. It's going to come up on an app on my phone.
Yep.
I can listen to it, I can communicate back to them. They don't have a screen, I don't have to worry about other people getting to them or what it is that they're getting to. So phenomenal product.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, and that launched with great success. We got into 1,000+ Target stores. We were serving families. Our own families in particular needed that product. So we were kind of scratching our own itch, if you will, with that. But, along the way, all these frontline businesses, which was the other market opportunity that we had on our whiteboard, they started coming to our website, our cute kid website, which had no business marketing at all, and saying, how do I buy 50 of these from my housekeepers, or 20 from my security team, or 100 for my cleaning or warehousing teams, right? And so the second opportunity that we had on the whiteboard, we realized was actually an even bigger need in the world because it's not really a commonly known thing, but The walkie-talkie market is still a multi-billion-dollar industry, and frontline workers, think housekeepers, think warehouse workers, aren't allowed to use smartphones on the job.
Right.
And so they're not connected to the cloud. So can you imagine how less productive you would be if you didn't have your smartphone every day in your job? That's the life of millions of workers around the world. In fact, frontline workers represent 80% of the world's population, right? Yeah. So our mission at Relay is to help kind of connect these frontline workers to the cloud and unlock the same productivity that we enjoy as information workers.
Yeah, that's awesome. Chris, so thanks for sharing your story. So, I mean, I think by any measurement, someone would hear that career and be like, okay, he's experienced some success. He's seen it. And so I'm going to ask you in a moment how you would define success, though, because I want to hear that from you. Before I do that, though, real quick, last little question about yourself. Did you think when you were younger, like maybe even say pre-Stanford days, did you think this was going to be your career journey? Did you have a plan? Did you have any idea what you thought or hoped it would look like? And how does this correlate?
I think my first dream job was to be a journalist, and I pursued that path for a little bit, then realized it was a really hard career and journalism was kind of changing a lot. And so then I began pursuing business in college. And since then, I could not have anticipated the journey that I've been on. I think God has moved in my life over and over, opening up these doors. But I did always sort of want to be a leader in a business and start something eventually. So feel blessed to have seen that sort of ambition fulfill.
Yeah. I think anybody who's been around you, and again, I have the privilege of being one of those people who's around you regularly, would describe you as an incredibly humble man. How have you managed to kind of make it through those successes, and $1 billion here and $1 billion, but still keep that perspective and to still keep that center that you have and that humility?
Well, I think it starts with just realizing through my faith that it's not by my own ability or will that these successes come. It's really trying to be obedient to God's will. And so we would need a whole 5-hour podcast to go through every story, but almost every time I made a plan, God had something better. Every time I was chasing a particular door willfully, God closed it and opened up something better. And so I think that's really the first key to answer that question. Okay. And you asked about how do I define success?
Yeah.
And so while there's business measures, right, like millions of revenue or X% growth, or each of the companies that I referenced, Attrition, Bandwidth, and Republic, were valued at $1 billion at one point or more. And those are sort of some of the metrics that we look at as business people. But honestly, what probably drives me more in terms of success is seeing others grow, right, in their careers around, the businesses I get to be part of. Like you, I'm a coach at heart. I'm a basketball coach outside of work. Yep. And what's more fulfilling than seeing a kid learn to play and develop a skill, and then a team come together. And so I can expand, but really seeing the teams that I get to lead develop and grow is the greatest measure of success in my life.
We are going to take a brief break from our show to let you know about a resource that we are making available to you. If you're looking for a resource on personal development or spiritual enrichment, then you've got to check this out. Chris, listen, the Hope in Real Life app, it's a free tool. Now, free to our listeners.
Free is good.
It was not free for us to create, but free for our listeners, made specifically for anyone who's looking for a bit more hope in their everyday life. Listen to the features: daily devotions, parenting tips, financial resources, marriage insights. There's even a community where you can share prayer requests if you've got things going on in your life, and you can see and know that other people are praying for you.
I need all that, by the way.
Every single bit of it. Stay tuned. Keep looking for it. We'll have it out. But listen, tomorrow can be better than today, and hope is possible, even in real life. Let's get back to the show. And so I'll ask you a very similar question then, because that's how you define success, is seeing them. How would you define leadership to actually moving people in those directions from A to B?
Yeah, so sometimes people think leadership is like strategies and financial models, and it is some of those things. But for me, a simple principle I think about, and we've actually coined it at our company. It's a little cheesy. It does take some inspiration from Snoop Dogg. We call it BWIML, right? Something that maybe you might hear from Snoop.
Yep.
And so BWIML stands for best work in my life. And so as a leader, I think about helping my team achieve BWIML, right? And so what best work in my life could be, hey, I'm learning something new, I'm stretching and growing. It could mean I'm making a huge impact, even if I'm not learning. Or it can mean I'm working with a team that I just love, right? Ideally, it's all three of those things. But at Relay and all the companies I've led, our philosophy is, like, if you look back 12 months at any given point, you should have experienced BWIML in a moment, a project, hopefully a season. Right. Now, it's almost never the whole year, right? Life is not that easy or sunshine and rainbows. There's going to be tough times, maybe a lot of them. But if you haven't had one BWIML moment or season in 12 months, something's probably wrong. You're probably in the wrong job, the wrong company. Yeah. And so as a leader, if I can get 100% of my employees, my teammates experiencing BWIML, we will have success as a company, no matter the strategy, no matter the financial model. Yeah,
that's great, man. That's great. Let's try to get real practical here for our listeners. So if someone's listening to this episode right now and they're thinking, man, how can I achieve success as in the marketplace? What advice would you give to them? And I know that's a wide open question, but I think that's the question a lot of people are asking. Like, how do I achieve success in the marketplace? What would you say to them?
The word that comes to mind in any role, CEO or just starting out in your career, is relationships. Focus on relationships. And I think that this is why, the Christian walk is so complementary and foundational to business success, really, right? Yeah. Because it teaches so much about how to treat others and build relationships. And those same principles that you learn in the Bible are the ones that I think yield success in business. What do I mean by that? So whether you're dealing with a customer, an investor, an employee, ultimately, I know it sounds a little, motherhood and apple pie, but it's always just about people, right? Yeah. And if you can build connections, authentic connections with people, trusted connections with people, they'll want to do business with you. They'll want to mentor you. They'll want to work for you, right? And so a lot of people think about business as this cutthroat battle, right? Yeah. Winners and losers. Yeah. I think if you approach it from a win-win model, right? How do I, gain something? How do you gain something? How do we grow a relationship in that? Even at some cost to me personally, right. Even at some loss or some dollars to my company. In the long run, those relationships are what build value, right? Either on a team or with customers.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, we were talking a little bit before the show. The reality is, because you said some people think of business, some people do not only think of business as cutthroat, but like for some people, that's their approach. Yeah, it really is. And I'm not saying there's no one out there that has not achieved some level of success that has been their approach. But man, you could do anything, and let's just use some of these market numbers, to $500,000 or maybe to $1 million, but I mean to $1 billion over again, and then to see something else. Man, there's some principles there that things just aren't sustainable over the long haul in that many different directions without a level of organizational health, without a level of relational trust. Like at some point, the relationships break down if we're not pursuing what's best, not just for me, but what's best for you as well. And if you're not doing the same thing. And so, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more with that. There's, I'll throw this in now. I didn't know,
Fire away, my friend.
There's in the Bible, which I know a lot of our listeners aren't necessarily reading the Bible every day, and that's great. We're here to bring hope to whomever we can. But in these books, 1st and 2nd Samuel, it talks about these three different kings. Essentially, you've got this king, Saul, and he's kind of a great king, but then kind of loses his way a bit. And then there's another king that's kind of up and coming in David. He's not king yet, but he kind of knows the throne is his one day. Pardon me. And so, but he handles himself the right way. Like he doesn't jump after it, chase after it before it's his time. And eventually he does move in. And then there's another king even after him, and Absalom, and he kind of has the wrong approach and is just going to, do whatever he can do to hijack the throne. I say all that to say, there's a lot of lessons that can be learned in approach to leadership. And approach to what does it really mean to chase after that thing that's in front of us, or what some people would call success. While I know a lot of our listeners wouldn't sit down and read through all that in the Bible, there's a great book called A Tale of Three Kings, and we'll link to the show notes. But kind of what you're describing right now is realizing like, hey, there is a greater good. There's a way to focus on doing my job really well, but also recognizing like there's other things at stake and other things at play as well that are also important, that it's not just the bottom line. It's not just success. So we'll put a link there, and that I think could be a great resource.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, just to amplify that point about relationships, right? Business is about ultimately transactions, but if you focus on the transaction and not the relationship, right? Like one sale, right, versus a multi-year relationship with a customer, for example, I think you don't build that long-term value that we've been able to build at Bandwidth and Republic and hopefully Relay to come here. It's investing in that relationship, that longer-term outcome that is critical, right? And even if you're new in a job and working for a manager, don't see it as just sort of completing A or B for that person, but how do you really build trust in that relationship with that manager so that you can talk about your career and promotion paths and whatnot. So there's a lot of ways this manifests, but I think too many people are transactional versus relational. And as we grow our team, in a company, or if you're starting a company or starting a new team at where you work, that also manifests in building a sustainable work-life balance for your team, right? So some leaders are like, I'm just gonna see people as a cog in a wheel.
Right.
I'm gonna maximize that cog and make this wheel go as fast as I can, and then move on, right? But to me, the greatest cost of a business is not any dollars or cents. It's actually attrition, right? When you lose knowledgeable, well-trained people that trust each other, right? That hidden cost of, you can fill someone's, that job, and backfill it, but what's lost in productivity and chemistry and relationship is one of the hidden costs that too many business leaders don't focus on, right? And so at Relay, our average tenure is 7+ years, right? That's invaluable.
Yeah.
And so to help achieve that long-term kind of tenure, you also need to make work and life balanced, right? I'm not saying we don't work hard and there's not tough seasons, but you have to balance those seasons with periods of rest, just as God calls us to every week, right? With the Sabbath. And so that's really important to building, I think, long-term value.
I hope our listeners are picking up on this, because this is just a great reminder for me. I'm talking to a CEO of largely a technology-driven company, right, and who's seen tremendous success in the technology-driven market in different companies. And when it really comes down to what is success, what drives towards success, what you're talking about are people and relationships and culture. And gosh, it's so easy to lose sight of and just to focus on the bottom line and the bottom line at all costs. But man, that is not the sustainable way to build into people, certainly, but also even we would say to build into an organization.
Yes. Yeah, no, that really is if I have one insight to share, having experienced a couple different successes at different companies, that's the thread that ties it all together.
Let me ask you this, because I know there's a lot of folks who would listen to this that are in leadership roles. And so what comes with that is the hours sometimes don't stop, and the stress and the anxiety. How do you personally deal with, as a CEO, how do you deal with the stress and anxiety that no doubt is just going to come our way if we'll let it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one that
I guess I should say whether we'll let it or not. It comes over.
One that I'm always wrestling with, and that's a struggle for so many leaders, right? Whether you're leading a company or a team, or just even as an individual contributor, how do you deal with that stress that can just be overwhelming? And so I think, for me, it really anchors, once again, in a biblical concept, right, from Matthew of, do not worry about tomorrow, right? For tomorrow, for today has enough worry
of its own.
And whoever gained an hour of life, right, from worrying. And so, and obviously the rest of that passage, which I would encourage folks to read in Matthew, is about why do not worry, right? Because God is going to take care of you just as He does the birds and the fields, right? By analogy there. And so, it for me, being able to rest my cares, my burdens, my worries at the feet of the Lord every single night, and in the mornings be renewed from that is critical. just staying present and focusing on the next problem, right? To offer a non-biblical, secular bit of inspiration, I love the movie The Martian with Matt Damon.
Yep.
Because, and I won't ruin the movie for the listeners here, but Matt Damon is faced with insurmountable, crazy odds and problems, right? That would sort of paralyze most people. But in that movie, he just focuses on solving the next problem, right?
Right.
And I think that's ultimately what God's telling us in Matthew too, is don't worry about the 10 problems tomorrow or the 100 the rest of the year. Just focus on today, right? Solve one thing at a time. Keep marching forward. Keep grinding, if you will. Keep getting renewed by God every morning. And then look back and realize, wow, like this insurmountable set of 10 things, one at a time got solved, right? And now you're to the happy ending in the movie. So,
and if I tell you what, if somebody's tuning in and looking for two things, I think if you hear relationships over metrics, and if you just and then after that, just focus on the next thing right in front of you.
Yes,
I think all of us as leaders could benefit from both of those. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
A couple questions I want to ask as we get ready to wrap up here, and let's just tie it back into you personally. I'd love for our listeners to really hear some hopeful things. So I'm going to ask you this question, Chris. Personally, in your life, what are you the most hopeful for right now?
I'll give you two answers.
Okay.
One is for Relay, our company. If I didn't mention earlier, we're trying to serve frontline workers, the millions, the 80% of the world that's disconnected from the cloud, and we want to connect them. And I'm really hopeful for our ability to fulfill that mission and create a lot of value for workers and for our team that's serving that mission. In my personal life, my kids, they're at this blossoming age and they're taking on new adventures, and whether it's my oldest trying to get into college next year or my 14-year-old trying to lead his basketball team in middle school. Those are the kind of things that I'm excited for and hopeful every day about.
That's awesome. And then if we had to say in 5 years from today, you hope your life looks like, what would you say?
In 5 years from now, but I'm open.
Buy a bunch more companies. Is that what we're going to do?
No. We're just building product now.
Okay.
But I ideally I could, if Relay has an outcome ultimately goes public or another company buys us, and if I'm done with Relay if that is what God has planned, and that could be 10 years or 20 years, but let's say in 5. The next chapter that I want to pursue full time is I want to be a basketball coach, as I mentioned earlier. That's my passion. So I'm open to God's timing and obedient to it on how long this Relay journey goes, and not impatient for it to end. To be clear, but whenever Relay's done, whether I'm 50 or 75, I want to go be a basketball coach full time.
I love it. Well, Chris, man, thank you so much for your time. I mean, so many nuggets here. I mean, focusing on relationships, relational over transactional, making sure that we're creating as leaders a sustainable work-life balance for those inside of our organizations. And then, man, that nugget of regardless of the stress, the anxiety, the overwhelming things coming at us, the most important thing to do is just to focus on the next best thing right in front of us. And so I so much appreciate and you being willing to come in here and articulate these things for us. My hope is that through this podcast, as you highlighted to us earlier, that this would help move folks a bit closer to the best work in their life. What did you call it? The BWIML?
BWIML, that's right.
The Snoop Dogg.
Yep.
Well, I tell you what, we'll close out on that. To our listeners, if you're interested in the resources that we talked about, A Tale of Three Kings, a great book there, some of the specific things that we talked about, or even if you're an organization that has frontline workers that's looking to put a resource in your workers' hands, that I would encourage you to check out Relay. Chris isn't going to make that ask, but I'll tell you, a phenomenal company and putting out a great product. And if there's anything that we can do for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. Resources are here. Chris, thank you so much again for your time. And here's to hoping that this brings our listeners a bit more hope in real life. See you guys next episode. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hope in Real Life podcast. If this content was valuable for you, don't forget, like, subscribe, share. You never know how important it could be to bring a little hope into someone else's life. There's even a place here for you to comment. We would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. Until next time, let's keep sharing hope.